What is going on, everybody? Wide receivers, week 9. These are your NFL DFS picks for FanDuel and DraftKings. My name is Chris. I'm your NFL writer here at Occupy Fantasy. Happy to talk about these options with you in this 10-minute video. Please, as always, like the video, subscribe to the channel, drop a comment below if you want to learn more about some of the wide receivers we talked about, or maybe there's one we didn't talk about you want to hear more about. Be happy to talk to you there. You can also consider joining our Discord. A link to do so is linked in the description of every video. So just click on that join button. You can talk to Occupy staff and other members about not just NFL DFS, but every other sport that's going on right now. We'd be happy to see you in there. Do you think Tyreek Hill is going to be one of the most popular wide receivers on this slate? Of all wide receivers over the last 3 weeks of play for their teams, Tyreek Hill leads in raw targets. He's 40 targets over the last 3 weeks. And the interesting thing with Tyreek is, we think of him as this speedy deep threat that goes over the top, stretches the field. Lately, he's run more routes out of slot positions at a shallower depth of target. His average depth of target over the last 3 weeks is 8.3 yards, actually. So Tyreek, more of that intermediate level option for Patrick Mahomes, and trying to get him to do some things, after the catch with the ball in his hands. But if he's going to play that way, then that means Tyreek has a little bit higher floor than normal, and probably should continue to see, double-digit targets pretty much every single week with that type of usage from Mahomes. So we're really interested in him, especially with his salary staying under that $8,000 threshold here on DraftKings, just $7,900. $8,500 over on FanDuel is a pretty good price as well for Tyreek this week. Obviously, in this video, we also hit on our underperforming wide receivers, our favorite tournament wide receivers that should be a little lower owned, that have been underperforming their target and air yard opportunity for their teams based off of their performance in recent weeks. 2 guys from that list actually will probably be a little bit more popular this week. First of which is Minnesota Vikings wide receiver Justin Jefferson. Jefferson has a 21% share of the targets, 34% share of the air yards from Kirk Cousins over the last 3 weeks of play. Has underperformed his expected touchdowns by about 1.5 touchdowns, so he's due to score. And he's got a pretty reasonable average depth of target, just over 11 yards. So a lot of opportunity here for Justin Jefferson still. Obviously, with his worst performance in recent memory in this very last game against the Cowboys on Sunday Night Football, where kind of Adam Thielen got most of the opportunity. Still feel like Justin Jefferson is going to be the guy that gives you more of what you saw in weeks 4, 5, and 6 here in terms of target volume, yardage, and then hopefully some more touchdown production. We like him a lot this week if that materializes. Same game, way too cheap this week. Marquis Brown. Marquis Brown has the most air yards out of all NFL wide receivers over their last 3 weeks of play. Makes him a very attractive option here with Lamar Jackson against the Vikings, regardless of the secondary wide receiver situation, whether that's Rashad Bateman, whether that's Sammy Watkins, and obviously with Mark Andrews doing his thing at tight end. Marquise Brown is the clear leader at wide receiver for the Ravens this year. Had about half the season to come to that conclusion and feel like that's pretty safe at this point. 24% of Lamar Jackson's targets, 43% share of Ravens air yards over the last 3 weeks of play at a really high 16-yard average depth of target. Marquise Brown definitely on our radar once again as a good play in all formats. Again, one of those underperformers on our list. Here on Thursday, we actually learned that CeeDee Lamb had a midweek ankle injury for the Cowboys. Now, I know that Amari is carrying a questionable tag here of his own. We're thinking it's more veteran rest for him, managing kind of him a little bit more carefully throughout the week. I think he's going to be pretty good to go on Sunday. But if Lamb is unable to go because of this ankle injury or limited in any way, then Amari is going to benefit from that. Just $5,700 here on DraftKings is way too cheap. $6,900 over on FanDuel. Second behind Marquise Brown in terms of total air yards of the last 3 weeks of play for all wide receivers in the NFL. 21% share of the targets for the Cowboys, 35% share of the air yards, at a 15-yard average depth of target. Amari is going to be an extremely fine play. If CD is limited, just to kind of stay on Dallas, then there's even more opportunity potentially behind Amari because Michael Gallup could return from injured reserve, be thrown right into a starting role in 2 wide receiver sets at just $3,900 here on DraftKings. And Cedric Wilson, $3,600 here on DraftKings. Especially if Gallup can't go, he would be the other guy. So a lot of opportunity here with the Cowboys should be interesting. Another offense that does have some value at wide receiver on this slate It is the Las Vegas Raiders. Slot route specialist Hunter Renfrow. On Monday Night Football, Tyreek Hill ran like just under 70% of his routes against the Giants from slot positions. That's what Renfro's going to do here against the Giants. He's just $4,800. They're down in personnel at wide receiver, but after the release of Henry Ruggs, so Renfrow could be relied on a little bit more, and his teammate, the other starting wide receiver that we expect, Bryan Edwards, could be relied on more in the deep passing game as well. So Edwards at 4,100 here on DraftKings, 5,300 over on FanDuel. Going to be an interesting play with that opportunity opening up for the Raiders here against the Giants. Our underperforming wide receiver list. Definitely the reason a lot of people still are here watching. Love to talk through the remaining options with you. Emmanuel Sanders, 0 points last week, like complete airball. And we had him written up as a good play and low risk for you. For the same reason, he's still a good play here as an underperforming wide receiver in week 9. He leads the Bills in air yards over their last 3 weeks of play at a really high 21 yard average depth of target. 14% of the targets, 39% of the air yards for the Bills is what Sanders has seen over the last 3 weeks of play. Don't expect another air ball from him. He should be in a really good spot to succeed here against the Jaguars with the Bills, who have the highest implied team total on this slate in betting markets. The dynamic duo, or the not so dynamic duo, of DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson with the Carolina Panthers. This is a little more risky. The Carolina Panthers carry the lowest implied team total on the slate this week against the Patriots. They have Christian McCaffrey returning from injury, most likely at running back. So that may actually shrink the opportunity at wide receiver for both these guys. DJ Moore, 6,400 on DraftKings, 7,100 over on FanDuel, has underperformed his expected touchdowns in the last 3 weeks. Should have more than 2 touchdowns. Just over two touchdowns in the last 3 weeks of play. 27% of the targets from Sam Darnold, 46% of the air yards at a 12.5 yard average depth of target. He may get former XFL star PJ Walker as his starter here because Sam Darnold's in the concussion protocol. And unfortunately, based on how Darnold's been playing, that may be an upgrade here at the quarterback position. Robbie Anderson is the other guy that is underperforming. And that's all we're going to say about Robbie Anderson at this point. I believe I read earlier, shout out to Aaron Schatz at Football Outsiders. Robbie Anderson is on pace to have the worst single season for a wide receiver based off of some of their advanced metrics that they've been tracking since, I think, like the early 1980s. So, yeah, you could say he's underperforming. That's definitely an understatement. Devonta Smith with the Eagles, 5,200 on DraftKings, 5,800 over on FanDuel. 20% of Jalen Hurts' targets, 28% of the air yards for the Eagles. Last week against the Lions was a running game mostly between Hurts and the running backs, and then all the passing opportunity went to Dallas Goedert. Hopefully that changes here in week 9. We do think Smith has been underperforming his touchdown opportunity all year, but in the last 3 weeks especially, he should have at least 1 touchdown, if not 2. Guys with the type of statistical profile of usage over the last 3 weeks, like Smith, they're always going to be underperformers, so we'd like him to bounce back here in week 9. Nelson Aguilar with the Patriots presents us an opportunity to use wide receivers in the same game on opposing teams in either a skinny stack or God bless you if you want to stack this low total game between the Panthers and the Patriots. It's just 4,100 on DraftKings, 5,400 over on FanDuel. 14% of the targets from Mac Jones, 33% of the air yards the last 3 weeks, with a really high 19.9 yard average depth of target. So kind of like Emmanuel Sanders, just at a much lower target volume. Nelson Aguilar has high-value targets going his way when the ball is thrown his way. So he's certainly interesting at a low price here in week 9. Finally, I already talked about Justin Jefferson and Marquis Brown earlier in the video. Cortland Sutton with the Denver Broncos, just 5,900 over on DraftKings, 6,700 on FanDuel. He's got 362 total air yards over the last 3 weeks of play for the Broncos, so he's right up there with the leaders. 19% target share, 43% share of the air yards for the Broncos in the last 2 weeks, at a really strong 15.7 yard average depth of target. We like Sutton a lot here in his week 9 matchup as a result. Teddy Bridgewater should keep going his way. Some of the other guys on this slate that are interesting, Deebo Samuel, basically in that role that I explained last week, is very similar to Highland Game Cooper Kupp in terms of seeing the majority of the targets, majority of the air yards with the San Francisco 49ers. He'll be certainly worth a look. Jamar Chase will continue to be played heavily at the role that he has with the Bengals. Obviously, Adam Thielen has been getting the results compared to Justin Jefferson. So we kind of view him as an overperformer. Cole Beasley would be the other bill that has a pretty interesting role at a mid-range price. Obviously talked about Amari. Kadarius Toney does feel like it's been reported that Sterling Shepard is going to miss some time, so Kadarius Toney may have a stronger role for the Giants as long as he can go. There's just a lot of things that are starting to materialize here in Week 9. But you're going to have to keep an eye on the news through Friday. That is when we will release the daily plug at OccupyFantasy.com. We will go over not just our favorite expensive and value wide receivers for you to use, but obviously our favorite plays at all the other positions on the slate. And then most importantly, how to deploy those players in your lineups for the type of contest that you're playing, whether that's a low-risk contest or a high-risk contest. It's really important to make sure that you're playing appropriately for the format of contest that you're in. It's the most important part of our plug. As always, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment below. Did you like what we had here for you? Would you like to hear more about the wide receiver that I talked about? You can leave a comment. We'd be happy to reply to you there. Or maybe if there's someone we didn't talk about, we'd be happy to answer your thoughts on that player down there. You can also do that in our Discord. If you join the Discord, you can talk to other Occupy staff and members, but not just NFL, but NBA, NHL, esports, soccer, all sorts of things that are going on. We'd be happy to talk to you about them in there. So once again, folks, thank you for watching. For Occupy, I am Chris, and we will talk to you soon.